What is up, Hellions, and welcome to another video. Today we're talking about something really cool. Another Pokemon content creator, Randolph Pokemon, just announced that he is heading up this project to create a grading company. They created a grading company. They're almost ready to open. They're called Ace Grading, and we learned a lot about how they're going to approach things and the labels and all sorts of things. They did a big 20-minute long video kind of going over just about every aspect you could possibly think of, from the cases to the labels to the security measures on the labels to submissions to prices to literally almost every question you could have. I felt like was answered by the video. And to start this video, I just wanted to mention kind of my thoughts on Randolph Pokemon. I think if anything, Randolph is one of the most sincere Pokemon YouTubers that I have watched a video from and experienced. As big as he is, to be as sincere and open and upfront in a lot of his videos about his own personal struggles and struggles within Pokemon and creating content around Pokemon and frustrations when it comes to getting cards into the hands of players and children and running his online business the way that he does, and his emphasis on trying to get cards to people who can't find them is really admirable. And I think if anyone deserves to succeed in something like this, I think Randolph is a really good guy as far as I can tell, and love watching his videos, and he deserves success. So I hope that he brings it with this, and we're going to go into his video. We are going to kind of discuss each major point and kind of my thoughts on it and what I think of some of the things like the labels and things. There's a pretty big emphasis in the video on the cases and how he really wants the cases to feel much more luxury. He wants the labels to look very different, more sleek, more modern than what you see nowadays, like with PSA, for instance, just a white label, red border, a little bit of text. CGC is a little bit more modern but has its own issues, and BGS is kind of very similar. Personally, I really like the case, and I like the case because it's very similar to CGC's cases. So CGC's cases are clear. They're clear, and I think it makes the cards really kind of pop and stand out very nicely, and they display really nicely being clear like that. Now, PSAs, they have kind of that clouded border around the edges, and in my opinion, I like the clear case better than kind of the clouded border case. The one thing, this is super picky, but the one thing is that on the Ace grading cases, for some reason, there are these little notches, these little circles on each kind of edge of the, I don't know if this is a part of their security features. They didn't really mention it in the video, but the CGC case is very sleek. It's just clean all the way around. It's very clear. These have these little notches at each corner of the label that really stuck out to me as kind of like the super clear, no obstruction all the way around the edge, instead of having these little dot bubble things in the corners of the case itself. He says that they're very luxury feeling, like they feel better than a lot of the other cases that other card companies are sending out right now. So we'll have to see once we finally get one in our hands. The labels are cool. I think the labels are very nice. Probably the best labels that I've seen so far from a lot of the grading companies. It's a very clean label. It's not very busy. There's not a whole lot going on it. It's got very large and clear writing. It's very easy to read. I like that the actual grade is big over in the corner, kind of like how CGC does it, where they put the grade in the large kind of box over to the right. It's a two-tone label, so it's got that nice dynamic kind of slash down the portion of it, and you got one color, and then all the information is there for you. I think what it does is it puts a really good emphasis on the important information that should be on the label. So what PSA does, I'm not a huge fan of. They're just text, and the grade is this tiny little text thing on the third line on the right side. And I like when the labels kind of show you the grade very large, because that's the main point of grading a card, is getting a grade, right? So it's nice to have that label up there. I think it just looked really clean, looked very luxurious with the black and gold. They also have two other labels that you have to choose from. There's a color match label. If you choose the color match label, they will match the colors on the card to reflect on the label. So that black and gold that were on the label before, on the Charmeleon, for instance, it's more of a red and an orange. And that I thought was really cool. And it's actually something that I brought up when people were crapping all over CGC's labels that they didn't like the blue. That's one thing that I brought up was like, oh, what if they actually took the type and they changed the color of the label based on what type of card it was, so if fire, red, water, blue, that type of thing. And these guys are doing it, and I think that's really cool. Now, they didn't mention whether or not these other unique labels will have a premium, like you have to pay a little bit more to get those premium labels. I'm assuming they would, or else I feel like everyone would choose color match or ace label or whatever. But a lot of people like uniformity in their collections too, so a lot of people might just choose standard because they want all of their cards to be the same. And some people might want to emphasize some of their cards over the others, so they might choose some of the more premium labels, which is a really good option, I think. It's really cool. Last but not least, the ace label. This was really interesting, but there is an issue that I feel like might come up. This label will not be available for every card. Basically, this one will be available for certain cards. Certain cards that they deem to be, extravagant or the best cards. So probably some of the more expensive cards, some of the cards that have some really cool designs, unique styles. They show a really cool Umbreon full art card, and the label is reflecting the card. It's very, very cool. I think it's a really cool look. And they're completely custom based on whatever card it is. Now, he did mention that they might, and this is where I think the one issue might come in. He did mention that they're going to do possibly like a social media campaign where they have people vote on what they want the next ace label to be. So he said it could be, the next full art Charizard, or it could be an Ekans or something like that. And in my opinion, though, that's going to be kind of tough because you're going to have people who have sent that Charizard in already, chose the standard label or the color match label, and then, 6 months down the line, maybe it gets voted in as the new ace label. And then what are those people going to do? Can they send their card in and get the ace label? How much will that cost? Will it not be a cost because it's a thing that's now available? Maybe it's just an upgrade fee from how much you would have paid the premium for the label, and you send the card in to get it relabeled. I don't know. But I feel like some people might be like, I just got that card graded. I just got it back, and now it's got the freaking ace label because the community voted it in. So that could be a little bit of a headache for some people. A couple other things with the labels, and that's with the actual grades themselves. So he said that they're not going to do half grades. So he's not interested in 9.5s. He's not interested in 8.5s, 7.5s, anything. It's just going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up till 10. And for me, I understand people's frustrations with the 0.5s, right? Because a lot of CGC 9.5s, you see them a lot more than 10s, right? A lot of those, if you send a PSA, probably would get a PSA 10. Because 9.5s for CGC are considered Gem Mint. But 9.5s don't bring, obviously, the premium that the 10 does. Like a PSA 10 sells for much higher than a CGC 9.5. So I understand wanting that nice round number, but I feel like you're going to get less accurate grades, possibly. He does say, and he emphasizes that he believes that he has come up with a good team of people, very detail-oriented people, and they trust in their grades, and they're confident that their grades are going to be accurate. I wonder, because we've seen kind of PSA where they've given 10s to cards that don't seem like they should get 10s, or they've given 9s to cards that don't seem like they should get 9s. Is it going to be the same kind of problem here where the card isn't necessarily going to match the grade? The other thing that he didn't mention is subgrades. So one thing I love about CGC and BGS is that they give you the option for subgrades. It is a little bit more money, but getting those subgrades just provides so much value. Because when you look at the card and you look at the subgrades, and you see that it's an 8.5 and it got a 7 on surface, then you can look at the surface and be like, oh, okay, there is that scratch there, there is that ding there. It gives you a little bit of proof, because you're sending these off to these people you don't know, who you trust, hopefully, are going to do a good job in grading your card, and it's nice to have a little bit of proof. Now, he didn't mention subgrades at all. His labels that he showed did not have subgrades on them, so I'm assuming he's going to go the PSA route for just not offering subgrades at all, which kind of sucks because I really do like the subgrade option from CGC and BGS. I just like having the proof. To prevent people from being able to scam others via printing out their own labels that look like Ace Gradings labels or anything like that, they have built in a ton of security measures, into the label. There's whole heaps and bounds of stuff. I'm not going to talk about it because I don't know jack about any of that technology, but you can go check it out in his video. I highly recommend it. If you're really interested in security and things, there was 4 or 5 different things that he went into pretty deep detail. There's one thing, it's like tiny little lettering that only shows up with a black light, and the labels being like etched in or whatever. I mean, it was crazy. There's a lot of security measures going into the label, and that's really nice to see, because it makes it really, really hard for people to be able to scam others via graded cards if there's a lot of those security measures in the label, and you can ask to see some of those security measures when you're buying a card. He also went into kind of how submitting is going to work on their website. Basically, it seems like you can go through, you type in what your card's going to be. It might autofill the rest of your card. It's got a large database already in there of different cards to submit, and if a card's not in there, you can add it. You can add all of the different details and everything, and then it will go to a employee that will then put it into the database. So it's very similar, I feel like, to CGC. When you submit with CGC, if a card is not there, you can add the card straight in there. And then I think when they're going through your submission, they probably add that to the database. And then the next time you go in, it's there. So I've done that a couple times where I've been the first person to submit like a brand new card, Express or whatever, and I've had to add the cards myself. And so that seems very much like a thing that CGC is currently doing, as well as it seemed like he was talking there was going to be almost like a live tracker where you kind of track where your submission is at any given time. I think that's really nice as well. And as far as I know, I think PSA has something like that where it gives you updates as it moves to different stages of your grading process, as well as CGC does it as well in less of a visual way. It's more of just like the little label next to your submission will change to schedule for grading or grading in process or stuff like that. So he says this a lot. He says that a lot of the stuff that he's putting out is going to be the best in the industry, which I think is going to be tough. It's going to be tough to live up to that, but I hope that he does. Competition is good in any environment, and the more grading companies and the more solid grading companies that you can trust, the better, I feel like, because then the kind of the monopolies, the PSAs either have to up their game or they're gonna fall because they're not willing to adapt. So we'll see how it goes, and I am pretty excited about this so far. We've got a couple more things to talk about. Basically, there is an allocation system. This was really interesting to me, and this is another issue that I want to discuss, that as a person who sends in cards for grading, it might be a little irritating if you run into this a lot. Each tier will have kind of a maximum, like a limit of the amount of cards that they can take into inventory to do, and then if they do like 2,000 cards that day, then they'll send the 2,000 cards out, and then it frees up 2,000 cards in the system again. So the system is automatically shutting itself off and on constantly, which to me is a little frustrating, because, and he did say that it could happen like hourly, like 1 hour it could be up, 1 hour it could be gone, 1 hour it could be up, 1 hour it could be gone. And in my head, I'm just thinking, God, if I went to submit and I'm just having to like me trying to get a PS5, I'm just constantly refreshing the browser, hoping that more slots are free for grading. I feel like, is that better than closing down? Because he says, like, we don't want to close our services because we get too backlogged. So what we're going to do is it's going to be like a revolving door policy where it'll open and close based on how much we have at that time. I think there's some other grading companies that have a maximum per day that you can that they allow for submission, and then once those submissions are filled, it's just done. I think there's a company out there that does that, and I think as a consumer, while I appreciate that he wants to really stick to the turnaround times and the prices and not have to adjust much and make sure that stuff's getting around, it would be a little frustrating if, especially early on, I'm sure they'll hit their limit really quickly, especially based on the prices that we're going to talk about in a second. I'm sure they'll hit their limit real fast. And then he does talk about wanting to scale as quickly as possible so that they can up those limits every day. Early on, it's going to be one of those situations where it's either going to constantly be closed, or every time that it opens, it's going to be a free for all. Like, it's going to immediately close again because people are going to have submitted all their, cards and stuff. Let's talk about prices and turnaround time. This is really the last bit of the video here. We're going to talk about prices. $10 or 10 pounds. 10 pounds bulk service. 60-day turnaround time. That's pretty good. 15-pound standard service. 30-day turnaround time. That's pretty good. That's both of those. I mean, the price for that and then the turnaround. The one thing that he didn't mention, though, which is very interesting, that all the other card grading companies do, is whether or not there's going to be a expected value. So when you grade with CGC, there is an expected value for the card. Is it expected value? No, I don't remember. I think it's expected value. So when you like, if I'm grading a base set Charizard, right, then I might have to grade that in the express tier because their standard tier only goes up to $500, right? And maybe my Charizard's in a really good condition, and I think it's more than a $500 card. You might have to grade express because there is a value limit per card. He didn't mention anything about value limits, so it might be a thing where it's just based on turnaround time. Like, hey, you want it faster, pay more. You want it slower, pay less. And there's really, like, you can send a $10,000 card into bulk if you want. I'm not really sure. But yeah, he didn't say anything about values of cards, expected values of cards, whether or not your card has to be within a certain threshold of value to send it into any particular tier. Didn't mention that. That's pretty standard for grading companies. So if he didn't mention it, either he forgot or they're not going to have it. I'm not really sure. They are going to offer faster services in the future, Express, and some other things that he was mentioning. And he didn't mention whether or not bulk will have a max amount or a minimum amount. He didn't mention whether or not bulk will have a minimum amount of cards that you have to do to submit, but he did mention that per submission there is a 60 card maximum. So he's trying to put a limit on it so that more people can use the service right away, which I think is really cool. But what I think is going to happen is people are going to just do multiple submissions, because he didn't say per person or per account. He just said per submission. So if one person has 200 cards they want to send in, then they'll just create 4 submissions to do that. So I'm not sure if that cap is really going to do much in the grand scheme of things. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I'm not sure, but yeah, he's doing everything he can to basically make it so that people don't experience what they're currently experiencing with CGC and PSA and these where PSA is still closed down. Their turnaround times are brutal. CGC's turnaround times are brutal. He's trying to make it so that people don't experience the same thing. But ultimately, that's going to kind of limit the people sending in the cards at whether or not they can refresh the page fast enough to get their submission in, whether or not they are willing to create more than one submission to get more than 60 cards in, whether or not they're willing to just sit at the 60 card per submission. So we'll see how that works. He's doing his best to basically like make it so people aren't experiencing the crappy situation that people are experiencing right now, which I think is pretty admirable. I really appreciate that a lot. He is a person who has tried to do that over the last year of getting, basically providing cards to families and children and trying to make it so that players of the game get cards. And he's done a really good job at trying to keep everyone in the TCG, in the hobby, and get everyone product at a decent price. I appreciate that a lot. At the start, they're only doing Pokemon, which makes sense. I mean, he's Randolph Pokemon. They want to do more TCGs in the future, which would be great. They also want to expand to other countries in the future, but currently they're only going to be in the UK. So lots of stuff here, lots of information. Go check out that original video. It's got even more details. than what I brought up. But let me know in the comments below if anything struck you as kind of like, oh, that's going to be tough. Because there were definitely a few things that I illustrated here in that original video that I thought, oh man, that's either going to be annoying or that's going to be pretty tough for people. So let me know in the comments too, what do you think of the labels? I think it's really interesting what they're trying to do with the labels, make them more custom and unique. But I also really like their standard label a lot. It looks good so far. And if there's any person I trust to do this right, it's someone who's been in the hobby grading tons of cards and has sort of expectations when it comes to that, and seems to really have a good heart and seems to be a good positive influence for Pokemon. So I'm really excited about this, and hopefully someday I will be able to send into Ace Grading and check them out. So yeah, let me know in the comments below what you thought. We'll see you on the next video. Thanks for stopping by. Later.